the way I'm hearing it and the way I experience it, that within the dominant paradigm and in the United States, uh, unconsciousness gets rewarded and consciousness gets punished. And the terror innate in that frame. And I'm aware that you've had a very rich history in this weave of your Buddhist practice and activism, and you spent time, you're coming from South Africa, witnessing apartheid, and I wonder if you could share a little bit about sort of what, for lack of a better word, inspiration you drew there that you would like to see awaken in people in this time. There's a spirit I'd love for us to get to talk about that is this alternative to um, uh, surrendering to the unconsciousness that gets rewarded.
Yeah, that's a deep question. As the question of South Africa, and was the ANC was 100-year resistance movement. So these resistance movements are generational, and they have memory to them. Which one of the things about the US is it sort of evaporates memory and is a culture of amnesia very quickly, and there's very because it hasn't really come to terms with its, like Britain, with the horrors of its colonial past. So this is a weakness for us, that we don't have a lived sense of that collective acknowledgement of history, and that's also doesn't help. In South Africa, really, with the dominant, just in numbers, 40 odd million plus Black community, or non-white community, 5 million or less white community. I mean, and a community that had lived for so long under oppression and had yet still this tremendous sense of spiritual strength, which manifested in every way, not to romanticize, because there are a lot of problems too, and it's a very patriarchal culture and can be very brutal. But there was this way that everything that people did, began with a prayer, began with a dance, began with honoring the land. It was just natural. It wasn't like we're doing a special thing. It's like if we had a meet, because we were very involved in the AIDS pandemic and setting up projects for women, to empower them to run and train and educate and minister to their communities, or under this enormous overwhelm after just recovering from not recovering, but just emerging from apartheid, and then this pandemic. So every meeting, whatever it was, would be a circle, would be a prayer, would be a song. So these are the sorts of indigenous practices that are just natural to those communities that, again, we've lost. And then one of the things that really struck me very early on, because some of the community were illiterate and, very, very under-resourced, deliberately had been, and they had no understanding or idea, what is this thing, AIDS? They'd see people die and it didn't make sense, and from their viewpoint, you're talking about something that if you get infected in a few years. And of course, also, it's a very conservative community. They're talking about sexual practices and so on. So we had the trainers would come from the young people who were actually positive. And we also had 10 years of government denial. That there was such a thing called AIDS, while people would, there was just so many deaths, and it was terrifying, really. And I actually thought a lot about the capacity for human denial,